Hi everybody, I'm Phil Gonzalez, and today I'm joined by my fellow Heroes of the Storm developers, Kent, Eric, Ed, Jade, and Alex. The Heroes of the Storm Deep Dive panel, this is more or less a look behind the scenes of what goes into making almost every hero. And we've been going through this process throughout the past year since last BlizzCon. We've released quite a few heroes, obviously, very, very distinctly different, each and every one. Our latest one being Samuro, the Blade Master. And as we get behind the scenes into how things are made, keep in mind we do this for almost every hero. But what makes Samuro, the Blade Master, very interesting is the Blade Master was actually the very first hero we ever made when we started this adventure called Heroes of the Storm. We just released StarCraft 2. The editor was a very, very powerful tool. And for BlizzCon 2010, we wanted to show people what we could do outside of the StarCraft 2 gameplay. So we started developing a brawler-style game, and one of the very first heroes that we developed was the Blade Master. And this was a very big learning experience. We were experimenting with things like bringing in new abilities, even testing out things like skins. You can tell that the Blade Master kind of has a Dark Templar influence. This obviously took off. And for the next couple years, we were making heroes like crazy. It was like, okay, who's your favorite? Diablo, Chen, Arthas. All these heroes were rapidly being implemented into the game. In that 2-year rapid implementation, there was a lot of stuff we learned. There was a lot of ground we covered. And at a certain point, we stopped. We had enough heroes, we'd experimented enough, and we realized it was time to kind of shift our focus from new heroes to developing some depth into the game, and that's when we started undertaking the talent system. This screenshot right here, this screenshot represents the point in which we stopped making new heroes. And right about now, almost every one of these heroes has finally gotten into the game, except Varian over there. Lonely in the bottom right, gray and unfinished. See, Varian was the last hero that we were blazing ahead trying to develop. You can see the date here. That happened in 2012. Varian's been waiting a long time to get his turn in the Nexus, but the talent system and other features needed priority. This kind of represents a typical implementation cycle for a hero. We'll build out the hero in a block-out gray model stage, kind of understand the proportions, what we're going for. Obviously, our art style has gone through quite an evolution as well. Varian's been waiting since 2012, and during that wait, something really awesome happened. When World of Warcraft Legion was released, the Blizzard cinematic team developed a high-resolution model of Varian. Whenever we develop a hero, we want to get as much reference as possible together so we can make the best version of that hero possible. Having a high-resolution cinematic model is a huge resource. Not only can we reference this model, but we also get all their concept sheets, understanding what the armor looks like, how it works, how it layers together, what the shininess of certain metal surfaces are, what his portrait looks like at a very great detail, what the weapons are supposed to do. All this stuff helps us tremendously, in addition to doing what we always do, gathering concepts together from all the iconic images of a character. One that we really gravitated towards was the image that Wei did for the 10-year anniversary. In addition to finding concepts that kind of supplemented new ideas, our version of Varian uses a shield, and so we thought, let's use that shield that came on the fan art tribute book. So with all those resources, we head off to work. This is Varian's second iteration, and the detail level is incredible. As you might know, these heroes take a long time to develop. There's several departments involved, not just art, or animation or game design, but we're also working with the technical artists, effects artists, voiceover, writers. There's so many people, and I'm missing some right now, but a lot of people contribute. And you can see here, we started Varian in February. But the process is more or less the same as it was back in the day. We start iterating, we start building the model out, we've searched for those proportions, we're looking to see how it all lights, we're playing with shapes, we're finding out how all the equipment looks. We put it in game and we see how it compares to all the other characters that it's kind of relative to. We're always kind of iterating and checking in, making sure things are reading well from game view, that the level of detail works across all these different viewports, such as the store, the hero select screen, the portrait, in-game, above all, is the most important. We continue to iterate, and once we get locked in, we go to a high-resolution sculpt. This lets us get an even more intricate level of detail. We're adding in rivets, the scale mail, detailing the fur, making those lion and eagle heads really shine. We're doing that same treatment to all the weapons. It's stuff like this is when the heroes really come to life. At the same time, we're also doing concepts of supplemental models. A lot of characters have supporting models or effects. Varian uses banners, as Kent Eric will explain later on in the game design aspect, but we concepted the banners and more or less got to a point where we finalized the art. This is Varian's final art. This is an amalgamation. This is an amalgamation of that cinematic art, the aesthetic of Heroes of the Storm, blending all those universes together so it looks cohesive. It was a real privilege to work on Varian and finally bring him into the Nexus after a 4-year wait. In addition to that, you know we do things like color variations, making sure these are unique, that they're sought after, and we have progression rewards. When you get to level 10, we love to make master skins. We crank the aesthetics of the skins up even more, and for Varian, we wanted to get that eagle head, that lion head, we wanted them roaring. We put a little bit more finesse on the weapons and the cape, and the helm. What's really fun is when we get to reference historical landmarks in universes that these characters come from. And something we did with Varian's helm is when the World of Warcraft movie came out, Varian's father, King Lane, was a very prominently featured character. And we wanted that helmet to kind of emulate his father's helm, almost like it was an heirloom. It's very, very cool to get the opportunity to do things like that, to hearken to a character's legacy, to amplify their presence and make a really, really great character. Speaking of the legacy, another thing that was really, really fun with Varian is his launch skin, is his Logosh appearance. You may or may not know, but when Varian, in his sword history, before he figured out who he actually was, he had amnesia, and he was a pit fighter, enslaved by Rhaegar the Shaman, and he was fighting alongside Valera and Brol Baremantle as a gladiator, and his gladiator garb was strongly orc-themed. And whenever we get a chance to hearken to that legacy, to acknowledge where these characters came from, it's a real privilege. And that's what we did with the launch skin. This was something that was really, really cool to develop, and I hope you all enjoy Varian in the Nexus. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Kent Eric to talk about the game design.
Thank you, Phil. What's up, BlizzCon? My name's Kent Eric. I'm the lead hero designer. I'm going to walk you through how we developed Varian from a gameplay side. So his history, much like Sumero, goes way back when we came up with that talent system. We were looking at this thing, and we were realizing, man, it just offers so much capability, so much potential we could do with this thing, with having this freedom of choice. And for a long time, we've had in the back of our heads this idea of a build-your-own hero. I don't know if you guys remember the Terrortron from StarCraft 2, this horrible thing where you mashed all these buildings together, but it was like, could we do a hero like that, where every tier of talent, you're like, oh, I want that mechanic, no, I want that mechanic this time, and just kind of mishmash. And we were talking about that, and we were thinking about what does it mean to build your own hero? Like, how does that work? Like, is it fun? Like, is it balanced? Is it interesting? And we were realizing, we're really talking about high levels of customization. Now, we've done hybridization to varying degrees in the past. We've done heroes like Tyrande, who dips a little bit into that assassin's tree. Karazim, who really tried to push it with his level 1 traits. But we wanted Varian to be even more than that. We wanted players to know this is a different kind of hero. He really stands apart. And we realized that we really needed to tackle this problem right at the front, and what we label him. And so Varian is our first multi-class hero, meaning he is labeled both a warrior and an assassin. For all you daily quest lovers, he will complete both quests for you at the same time. But we really felt like if players know at the loading screen, or even, and this is where stuff gets funny, in the draft screen, they don't know who Varian is, they'll understand that he's very adaptable and that we can get away with a lot more in the game design. So with that kind of knowledge in mind, we set about designing Varian. Now, what's really interesting about him is we designed him completely backwards from all of our other heroes. We started with the talent tree, which doesn't make any sense at all because we didn't even know what he did, yet we knew we wanted to start augmenting whatever it was going to be. So in talking with the art team, we already knew we wanted Varian to do these really epic artistic moments, like maybe splitting his swords in two, like we see him do in Legion, or picking up the shield to become a tank, or going into a two-handed grip with his weapon. And so from there, we kind of already had, all right, there's 3 gameplay styles. That's pretty crazy, right? We have the tank Varian, we got this burst DPS, we got the sustained damage with the splitting swords, but can we do more? Because this is Blizzard, right? We always got to do even more crazy stuff, right? It's BlizzCon. So we realized, well, you know, we look at these specs, we look at these gameplay styles, there's 2 variations of each of these that we could easily pivot to. So what if we do another tier of choices, where Varian could spec either more defensively or more aggressively offensively? Well, sure, that sounds great. That's just 2 choices. That's not that unreasonable, right? But when you start combining these things, you start to realize you're actually talking about 6 different heroes now. And that's when we start kind of getting scared as a design team. That's a whole lot of hero for one guy. But he's the High King of the Alliance, so he can do this, right? So we looked at these specs, and we realized that actually we already have heroes in the game that kind of embody each of these choices. When it comes to the tanks, we have 2 types of heroes. We have heroes like Johanna and Chen, who represent this kind of very frontline tanky hero in the form of really defensive in Johanna, or aggressive and diving your backline like it's just it's insane Chen. Sorry, I may have lost the game to Chen yesterday. I'm not going to fuss about that one. Or when it comes to burst damage, we have heroes like Sonya and Zeratul, both of whom bring a ton of burst damage, but Sonya much more durable, Zeratul very flighty, he's here, he's there. And when it comes to rapid attackers, we have heroes like Artanis and Illidan, both of whom, again, are just continually piling on sustained damage, but Artanis is basically unkillable if you get to level 20, and Illidan, who I don't know where he was there, I don't know where he's gone now, right? Oh, look, our support's dead, it must have been Illidan. And so we looked at this and realized, okay, well, let's take each of these heroes and let's start breaking them down into their core components. What are their mechanics that make these heroes tick? What are the abilities that they have? And in doing this process, we were looking for the patterns and looking for the things that split these heroes and made them different from each other. And we started to find the patterns. We started to find the clumps. Maybe there's some AoE damage here, some self-survivability there, some gap closing here and there, and oh, look, these guys have this and these guys have that. And it was in doing this process, this mega Excel sheet of doom, that we started to kind of see, oh, this is what Varian's going to need in order to do all the things we need him to do. And it was from this process we designed his entire base kit, which I'm about to walk you through next. So, Varian. First up on his Q, we've got Lion's Fang. Now, Varian's going to take his sword, he's going to slash it in the air, send out this shock wave. It's going to deal damage to all enemies that it goes through and apply a slow to them. We've got a video here. This gives them some reach. It's on a relatively low cooldown. Gives them some area control, especially in the early game when you're doing some laning. Next up on the W is Parry. This is Varian's self-survivability tool. Helps him stay alive. Varian's going to bring up his swords, and he's going to deflect all incoming basic attacks for a very short window of time, allowing him to take 0 damage from all of them. This is a multi-charge ability, and so you got to get really good with your time if you want to start mastering this one. You're going to see Tracer's going to come up to here, and Varian's going to wait until the right moment to proc it, and just deflect that entire magazine from Tracer. And finally, we have Charge, because what's a World of Warcraft warrior without Charge? Varian's going to dash his opponent and apply a hefty slow to them, allowing him and his allies to follow up with some mean damage. Pretty straightforward, kind of what you'd expect out of a warrior. Now, at level 4, we have these 2 options. These allow you to really become super defensive or super aggressive. First up, we have Shield Wall. This will cause your parry to give you the protected status. All you Medivh players out there just went, oh my gosh, you're insane. And you're right, we are insane. This will cause you to become immune to all damage. But maybe that's not what your team needs. Maybe what you guys need is something more aggressive. You need to get to that backline because they're running 3 squishies. And you should definitely be taking Warbringer instead. This is going to cause your charge's cooldown to go from 16 seconds to 6, which is kind of insane. We don't usually do this on talents, but this is Varian. It's going to cause that slow you saw to be a stun, which, if you're hardcore, you're doing the math, and you're like, you're insane. And yes, that's exactly right. Now, let's talk about these level 10 choices. The real gravy here. First up, we have Taunt. This will make Varian into a warrior. When you select Taunt, two things are going to happen. Varian's going to pick up his shield, and passively, his maximum health is going to be increased by about 50%, making him way tankier. Second, with a low cooldown ability, he gains Taunt, where he can force enemy heroes to attack him. This allows him to peel for his allies or lock down an opponent so that you guys can blow him up. Our animators had a ton of fun with Varian, by the way. Next up, for that burst damage roll, we have Colossus Smash. Varian's going to go into two-handed grip on his sword, almost doubling his attack damage, giving up a little bit of health to compensate. And he'll be able to leap to his opponents and slash them for a ton of damage and make them vulnerable so they take bonus damage. I think we've got Arthas here, our favorite punching bag. Going to take a hit from Varian. Very good at blowing up squishies. I think we got another clip against Zool, who is going to mistakenly stand still and eat all that extra damage. No, y'all wanted to see him leap again, didn't you? Finally, we have Twin Blades of Fury. Varian's going to split his swords in two, doubling his attack speed. And this is a passive heroic. With every attack, Varian's going to gain a huge boost to his movement speed, and every third attack, he's going to do a bunch of extra damage. We're going to watch him chew through his arrow tool. This is super fun, by the way. The numbers are just flying everywhere when you're playing him. Before he dashes onto Jaina to finish her off. Now, what I just walked you through is a ton of mechanics. And don't get me wrong, it's super important, especially when we're talking about a multi-class hero. But that's just one side of the coin when it comes to hero design. And the other is fantasy. We really want you to feel like you're playing not just a WoW warrior, but you're playing Varian Wrynn, High King of the Alliance. And while making his kit, we're like, well, this is really cool. Like, we love it. It's awesome. Splitting the sword, super Varian. Can we do more? Can we do more? And we're looking at the art. We're looking at pieces like this, where he's got this giant banner behind him, and we're like, well, he's like, kind of like this frontline leader king. You know, he leads his armies from the front. Very heroic of him. So what if he threw down banners to inspire his allies? Okay, that's kind of cool, but can we work it more? Well, we have this idea of customization, and lots of it. So what if we had Varian? He's the High King of the Alliance, right? There's not just Stormwind. There's other nations he represents. And so at level 13, you'll be presented with 3 different banners, each representing a different nation. And you'll get to choose one to bring this buff to you and your teammates. First up, I'd like to show you the banner of Ironforge. Now, maybe you're going to look at your team and realize that you guys need a little bit of extra armor in order to survive your fights against your enemies. And you can throw down this banner, and you and surrounding allies will be given a big boost to your armor. Now, the sound team had fun with this one, and they've actually included each city's music with the banners when you throw these down. Maybe you're running a double mage comp, and you really want to see just how much damage your Chromie can do. With the banner of Dalaran, you throw this down, you and your allies will get a big boost to your ability power. I'm sure it's pretty insane. It also always gives me that nostalgic feel for Wrath of the Lich King every time I throw this down. And finally, Varian's own home kingdom, Stormwind. This banner is going to give you and your allies a movement speed boost. This is great for catching an enemy who's out of position or disengaging from a fight that's gone bad. And I believe we've got a short clip of this in action. For all you Hearthstone players, you can very soon behold the armies of Stormwind. And it's Tracer and Zarya. Very strange. And yes, the shrine did just pop. Did anybody else get like triggered? Like, oh, I got to go to mid lane. Now, this Varian, he's playable here on the show floor. But next, I'd like to invite up Ed Crane to talk to you guys about the art of our next hero.
Thanks, Ken. I'm done. So you guys saw that trailer at the opening ceremonies, right? Oh, chills. Man, so I'm Ed Crane. I'm a character artist on the Heroes of the Storm team, and I get to tell you about the art of Ragnaros. So with Varian, we decided to create him starting with his ability kit and his talents. But Ragnaros, we just wanted to embrace the nostalgia of being the raid boss. So to do that, we're going to start with understanding his lore and his history. Who is Ragnaros? Well, Ragnaros' release back into Azeroth and the creation of the Molten Core begins with a story of Thaurissan and the War of the Three Hammers. Now, Thaurissan, he was a dark iron dwarf, and he had his enemies bearing down on him after his treacherous schemes had failed. So, the War of the Three Hammers was a war between the Bronzebeards, the Wildhammers, and the Dark Iron Clan. So, Thaurissan grabbed his 7 most powerful dwarven mages and descended to the darkest depths, expecting to summon and enslave a powerful elemental. But, to their surprise, they summoned Ragnaros himself. So, with Ragnaros' arrival, it caused a violent cataclysm, ultimately the enslavement of the surviving Dark Iron Dwarves and the demise of Thaurissan. Rest in peace, Thaurissan. Your Hearthstone card is awesome. How many of you remember your first descent into the Molten Core? Man, walking that spiraling molten pathway to summon the Fire Lord himself. He was so colossal, so massive, you had to scroll your camera all the way out just to look him in the eye to see what trouble you were in. What you felt in the raid at that moment is what we felt when we set out to create Ragnaros and bring him to the Nexus. A call to arms went out to the art department, and we grabbed our flasks, our pots, and our food buffs. We were prepared. Our mission was to recapture that powerful Ragnaros summoning moment and make you feel like a raid boss. So to do that, to make a big raid boss, you need a big concept. Boom! Man, we went all in on this. We knew we had a very difficult task because our normal hero is a model with some supporting effects, whereas Ragnaros, he's on fire. I mean, he is fire. So we decided that we were going to make portions of him out of 3D, and then we were going to have the effects team make up the rest of it. And then we were going to just bring them all together into the final character, just really try to bring this concept to life. So there is the final turnaround of base Ragnaros. Now, the lower half is a 3D blockout model that we hand off to the effects team so they can create that whirling, flaming cyclone that we all know and love. Now, there was many challenges that we had to overcome, but we were committed to bringing Ragnaros to the Nexus. But what would Ragnaros be without Sulfuros? The first legendary weapon added to the World of Warcraft. Now, luckily, Ragnaros has already farmed up all the mats, so this legendary weapon is yours. Now, we were very inspired by the asset in World of Warcraft, but we wanted to give it that hero's aesthetic, so we made it bigger and chunkier and more readable from player camera view. But that's not all. We concepted out each of his ability models because we felt it was crucial to gameplay that Ragnaros' effects feel different than, like, say, Kael'thas' fire and Butcher's fire. And to do that, we really incorporated a lot of his environment from the Molten Core. And you can see the options we were exploring with meteors, both the rolling and the falling varieties. But to make sure that the kit felt cohesive, we set up an effects sheet similar to this, where we can see all the abilities playing at the same time. This is important to Ragnaros because he has 2 forms. a hero form, and a raid boss form. And we really want you to know that when an ability is coming at you, it's from Ragnaros. Here is a concept sheet that we did for his death sequence to his Molten Core ability. That lets you take over a fort for a short amount of time, but we wanted that ability to feel powerful from beginning to end. So we went all out. Now this is where we attempt to recapture that powerful Ragnaros summoning moment. Now he gets an entirely new model, and I wouldn't be surprised if several of your enemies decided to stop and try to get away, but nobody escapes Ragnaros, right? And you can see the death sequence coming up. Engage. There you go. Pretty cool, right?
Pretty hot.
All right, Ragnaros. He's ready for the Nexus. Developing and creating Ragnaros was an immense challenge, but you know we love to take a challenging hero and bring him to BlizzCon and show him off. So, we pushed the concept of Ragnaros to a 10, to the limits, and we started working on the Master Skin for Ragnaros. Well, ETC kicked in the door and yelled, "Crank it up to 11!" So, we always listen to heavy metal cows at Blizzard. So here is that Master Skin concept cranked up to an 11. Yeah. When we start working on a Master Skin, we are really just trying to take the core aspects of that character and just level them up. So with Ragnaros, we were inspired by the armor he wore in Sulfuron Keep in the Firelands. He's more metal, more imposing, and we added more spikes. I mean, love him or hate him, spikes are aggressive, and that suits Ragnaros' style just fine. So here in gray, you can see the pieces that we needed to add, the 3D that we needed to add or replace over his existing character to create that Master Skin. And here's those same pieces sculpted in place over top of the base Ragnaros sculpt, just to make sure that we've got that concept. Master Ragnaros, in-game. So we took that base concept, pushed it to a 10, took that Master Skin, pushed it to an 11. Now where do we go from there, right? 12? 13? Nah, we're Blizzard. We go right to an 18-month-old version of himself. So you may remember Lil Rag as an obtainable battle pet in the World of Warcraft. Well, we decided that would be a great launch skin. His proportion is significant enough that we needed to make an entirely new rig and set of animations, but you know, you always try to give your kids the best, right? Well, I showed you some awesome abilities, and I'm sure you are very curious on what they actually do. Well, here's the man with the most epic beard up here, Jade Martin, Ragnaros hero designer, to walk you through those.
Thank you, Ed. That was a great introduction. I appreciate it. Hello, BlizzCon. How's everyone doing? I'm Jade Martin. I'm one of the hero designers here on this wonderful game. I'm super pumped to be here to talk to you guys today. Ragnaros is a unique addition to the Nexus. For those of you who don't know, his trait Molten Core allows him to channel on allied or destroyed forts and take them over for a period of time, getting a new set of empowered abilities. This is pretty unique to the Nexus, and I can't wait to see what everyone does with it. But before we get to that, I'd love to talk to you all about the development of Ragnaros. You see, Ragnaros was an immense challenge for us. How do we take this character from Warcraft lore, this iconic character, and transfer him into the Nexus? We knew we were going to have a challenge in front of us, but we were all excited, and we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. We wanted a hero that can manipulate the battlefield. And there were a couple ways we could go about this, but one of the very early prototype ideas that we had was actually having Ragnaros replace the core. And as you see here, it's a very early prototype of his Firelord model from Warcraft 3. He had a global set of abilities, and these abilities would allow him to rain destruction from the sky with meteors, send lava waves throw Sulfuris into the air, a lot of the abilities you actually see on his kit today. But he also had the ability to summon a Son of Flame. Now, this Son of Flame was controllable by the Ragnaros player and gave him a lot of his team presence. Well, we were pretty happy with this design, and we decided to take it to our team. You see, when we are happy with a design, we like to take it to our team so they can give us feedback. It's very valuable to us because they're our front line of defense. They really let us know if we're doing a good job or a bad job. Well, we got that first round of feedback, and the majority was pretty good, but we knew there was an overwhelming amount of feedback from our own team saying, I don't feel like Ragnaros. And that's a huge problem. If you're locking in as Ragnaros, you want to play as Ragnaros. So we got together, the design team, and we discussed what it was the players were missing, where we weren't hitting that mark. And we boiled it down to two things. The first being, this early concept Son of Flame you see here, the players were controlling that the majority of the game. That's kind of the avatar they saw. That was the hero they were playing. And number two, the only time you ever saw Ragnaros was when you were losing. He was stationary core hero. And so you never saw him except for his global abilities. And that felt horrible. It was like, okay, I'm losing and, oh, I'm Ragnaros. That didn't feel epic. That didn't feel like the raid boss. So we knew we had to do something. And so we gave him the ability to submerge. Yes, that's right. I gave the ability to Ragnaros to submerge and move the core. As you can imagine, this is a terrible idea. Terrible. There are so many things wrong with this. I mean, is he invulnerable? Is he taking actual core damage? What gets left behind when he moves the core? That's a prototype in the top left there. It was heart of the core is what we were calling it. And he's so colossal, right? He's the size of the core, going up anywhere in the battlefield, blocking off choke points, appearing above players. It was just not healthy for our game. And we realized, I think it was about a playtest, maybe two, that this wasn't going to work. So we cut the idea, but we did learn something from it. It was really cool to see Ragnaros in the battlefield, despite all the problems it caused. And we really wanted to chase that fantasy of the raid boss being summoned in. It was at this time we kind of realized Ragnaros wasn't the core hero. That wasn't his fantasy. Everyone wanted to play as Ragnaros. They didn't want him sitting at the core. And so we said to ourselves, if not the core, then where? It was at this time we got together and discussed where we could get that same epic raid boss feeling of summoning in Ragnaros. And someone had the idea of, what if he was able to take over forts and keeps? And it was like a light bulb. It clicked. It was like, I think we could do that. We could transition the kit from the core to these forts and keeps. And we know the space is large enough. He's not just showing up in random choke points. We know we can fit a fort there, so we can certainly fit Ragnaros. And the great thing about the forts and keeps is they're all over the map. They're predetermined. We know the space is large enough, and players are going to see it more than when they're just losing. So we had this awesome idea, but we needed some way, some sort of vessel to bring Ragnaros in. Enter Major Domo Executus. So this was another iteration. And what better hero to summon in Ragnaros into the battlefield than the one that actually did it in the Molten Core raid? Well, we went forward with this idea of your avatar being Major Domo, and we gave him a set of abilities, but his primary goal was really trying to summon in Ragnaros. That was the epic moment. And we took this to the team, and lo and behold, feedback came back. I still don't feel like Ragnaros. I love playing as the raid boss. It's cool when I summon him in, but when I lock in as Ragnaros as my hero, I don't want to play as Major Domo. Well, this is a huge deal. Like, we were not hitting the fantasy of Ragnaros then and there. And we knew if our team didn't like it, you guys wouldn't like it. And it's very important that we hit that fantasy. So we got together, and this is very, very late in the development cycle, much later than we would ever feel comfortable making changes. But we got together with our artists, our design team, our sound, our writers, and we talked. What can we do? We have this really cool, unique mechanic of him taking over forts, but we aren't nailing the hero fantasy. So we discussed, and one of the ideas that we had lingering in the back of our minds was, what if we just let the player play as Ragnaros the whole time? So he has the hero form and then the molten core form. And the hero form's kind of like his weakened state. He's not quite as powerful, but when he takes over that fort and those keeps, he becomes this gigantic raid boss that enemies fear and allies love because, well, let's face it, who doesn't want a raid boss? And so we moved forward with the idea, and something really amazing happened when we took it to the team again. The feedback went from, I don't feel like Ragnaros, to I feel like the raid boss. And it was so awesome, and we were so pumped and jazzed that we were heading in the direction that we wanted to go. And a large part of that is his trait, Molten Core. Molten Core allows Ragnaros to channel on an allied or destroyed fort, and after a couple of seconds, he takes it over, gaining a new set of abilities. The first ability is Q, Molten Swing. He swings so furious in a huge arc, stunning and dealing damage to enemies. His W is Meteor Shower. He summons a volley of meteors from the sky that damage and slow enemies, making it hard to escape the Fire Lord. His E is Rune Explosion. He summons a rune on the ground, after a short delay, explodes, dealing damage, as you can see here with our punching bag Arthas. Now, we knew we needed a kit worthy of the Fire Lord, even for his hero form. And so his first ability is Empower Sulfuras. It causes his next attack to instantly hit, dealing AoE damage and healing him for a portion of the damage dealt, making him a very strong melee assassin with the ability to sustain. His W, Living Meteor, calls down a meteor at the target location that rolls in the targeted direction, dealing damage along the way. Now, this is great against fleeing enemies, as you can see here in this clip. And his E, Blast Wave. Blast Wave can be cast on Ragnaros or an ally, granting a short burst of movement speed that after the duration expires, explodes, dealing damage. This makes it a great initiator. Now let's talk about his heroics. His first heroic is Sulfurous Smash. Ragnaros hurls Sulfurous into the sky, and it smashes down at the target location, dealing damage. Now, if you're really precise with it, it will deal triple the damage and stun enemy heroes hit in the center. Great against mosh pitting ETCs. Now his R2, Lava Wave. I don't know if anyone's seen this yet, but this is for those of you who prefer chaos. Ragnaros summons a lava wave from his core, sends it down a targeted lane to the enemy's core, instantly killing minions and dealing incredible damage to heroes caught in its wake. Now, I'm really happy and so proud of the team for all the work they put into Ragnaros, and I can't wait for you guys to get a chance to play him on the show floor. But before we do that, I would love to hand it over to Alex to talk about future updates.
So Ragnaros and Variant are awesome, if you guys haven't seen yet already, and it's really just shows how much as a design team that we've grown since Heroes of the Storm was first created. Ragnaros is basically has this ability to become this giant monstrosity that can almost kill a whole team on his own, whereas Variant is essentially 6 heroes in one. Now, my name's Alex, and I'm on the Live Balance team. I just want to say that we don't just look at these new heroes, but we're constantly going and remembering all of our old heroes too, to make sure they feel just as awesome as the Fire Lord or the King of the Alliance. So a common question we get when we do these sort of talent updates or kit revamps is, why are we doing what we're doing? What's our thought process? What are we doing? What are our talent philosophies? So I'm going to share just a couple of those with you right now. So one of the first things we were doing, we were making our talent trees, is we were starting to try to shy away from having too many synergies within the kit, or within the talent trees themselves. If you took a ton of multi-shot talents on Vala, say, all of a sudden multi-shot was really OP with all of them, or really underpowered without all of them in order to be balanced. And so we started to kind of shy away from having too many synergies. But what we actually found was that players really enjoy kind of finding these sort of builds that you can make. For example, with Nazeebo, with his rework, we have like a spider build, we have a toad build, we have a wall of zombies sort of utility build. And what's cool about these, as long as we don't make too many of these things that synergize with each other, it's really cool. It's a different style of play. You say, oh, I'm a spider Nazebo main. That's what I like to do. That's my jam. Or maybe you want to really do a toad build because there's a bunch of melee guys diving you and you shotgun them down. So we're really starting to pursue this with more and more. And I think Varian is a good example of sort of this idea that we're looking at. Okay, now the other thing that we're starting to do more of is realizing that some characters just need certain things. Like Illidan, for instance. If any of you guys used to play old Illidan with his old talents, he would have a couple survivability talents sprinkled throughout the tree. In fact, you probably can't remember what any of his other talents are because that's all you picked. You picked First Aid, Stone Skin, whatever you could to live. Because that's what Illidan needs. That's a mandatory necessity for him to be effective. He's this kind of swarming gnat that wears you out, and as long as he's alive, he's doing his job. So instead, what we're starting to do with characters like this, where they just really need these essential things, is starting to pair them together. So Illidan, for instance, on level 13, has a defensive option. And these are all defensive options. So instead of just choosing, do I want to live, you're choosing, OK, how do I want to live? Are there a bunch of mages on the team? Is this better for my gameplay style? Does this work better with my team? Similar choices for damage, because this frees you up the option now. Maybe there were a bunch of really cool damage options you wanted to pick on Illidan before, but you couldn't because you had to live, and that was all that mattered to you. So we're starting to do more and more of this as we go. Now, one of the cool things about having these sorts of guidelines is that we know that we can break them. And that's actually a really important thing in design in general, is you create rules so that you know exactly when you're going outside the boundaries. So for a character like Karazim, for instance, where he has 3 very diverging play styles, that does not mesh with the mandatory choices idea, but that's okay for this sort of character. We're going into it right from the get-go with this in mind. So you could have a Transcendence Karazim where you're attacking and getting lots of mana, casting lots of abilities, or an Insight Karazim where you're punching to heal your allies, or an Iron Fist Karazim where you're more of a bruiser style and you're doing lots of damage and kind of a hybrid on your team. But I just want to say, I'm sure you guys have heard a little bit about talents, but what you really care about is like, hey, what's coming next, right? Okay, so the first thing is I'll say that Karazim is getting a talent update. As you can imagine, we were doing Varian right, and he's like this multi-class hero. So we knew that we could do better with Karazim too. So there are a few things that we're doing. The first is at level 4, he's going to be able to pick between 3 different mystic allies, pictured here. So these kind of function similar to a healing ward or a scouting drone, where you place them on the battlefield and they last for a limited period of time. You'll be able to choose the Spirit ally here on the left, which heals your nearby teammates, an Earth ally that will block basic attacks to anyone in the area, or an Air ally that provides you vision, and you'll be able to place lots of them too. Now, one of the core sort of design philosophies of Karazim is he's very mobile. So we thought it'd be really, really important and introduce lots of really cool playmaking to also allow Karazim to Radiant Dash to jump around to all these allies too. So you'll do sorts of really fancy things on the battlefield. Like in this video here, Karazim has seen a thrall taking a mercenary camp, and he's pretty low health. So he jumps over, takes the camp, and then jumps back to his air ally before the Vala can punish him for it. Now, the other thing that we're doing with Karazim's update is we're sort of embracing the idea of Bruiser Karazim. And it just didn't really work right now, honestly, as most of you probably know. It's fun. It's a ton of fun. But just your team, when you really wanted to win, you kind of needed one of the other two. So we wanted to embrace Iron Fist and make it really effective so that you can actually fulfill that sort of melee assassin role. Melee assassin role. So what we thought he really needs is that uptime. So now every 3rd punch, in addition to doing extra damage, will also give him some extra movement speed, so he really can stick to opponents. Now, something else we're doing with Karazim, and this is just kind of a fun thing, is that Wave 100 Fists is a talent, if you don't know, that you can take, and when you Radiant Dash to enemies, you also unleash a volley of blows. So we're also going to make that work with his trait. So it's going to be kind of this really cool defining sort of trait build idea of a talent that lets you do lots of cool things, like you'll see in this video of a Karazim that dashes to a Vala, launches her with a series of punches over and over again, and she just can't quite escape. If you guys haven't had a chance to play with Wave 100 Fists on live yet, do it. It's so awesome. Those punching noises are like the best thing ever. Okay, so something else that we're doing is we're going to update Dahaka. Now we're going to make a few. So now the majority of his changes, there's a few base kit things, just really small, and a lot of shifting of talents around to kind of just make more sense, to kind of fit, we think, better with who the character is. We're pretty happy overall with who Dahaka, or how Dahaka plays, but we think our biggest objective with his update is to allow him to be picked in more situations, particularly as a solo warrior. Right now he's played a lot as kind of that duo guy on big maps, but we really want him to be able to be that frontline presence for his team. So what we're going to do here is there's a few small things, but one of the cooler ones is we're going to allow you to cancel burrow early. So, yeah. I know a lot of you guys wanted that for a long time. This one's for you, Reddit. So what we think is going to allow you to do is use this defensive option, his primary defensive tool, and sort of just burrow under the ground, but also then pop right back up and still be that frontline presence that his team needs him to be as a solo warrior. You'll be able to do lots of really cool playmaking, like dodge a pyroblast or lunar flare, as you can see in this screenshot here. There's a few other minor things coming. In particular, we're going to just buff adaptation to now heal you for all damage you take, and not just 60% of the damage you take in the duration. So it's full healing for him. Don't hit Dahaka. Okay, so now if you guys have any questions for us, we're going to field them pretty soon here. There should be 2 microphones in the aisles if you want to come up to it. But before we get there, do you guys want to hear about one more thing? Are there any Artanis fans out there? This one's for you, Trick Slayer. So with Artanis, we have a talent update and also a few base kit changes coming to him. Our primary goal is to make him just a better bruiser, a better sort of fulfill the roles that we think he needs on a team. And if you guys saw in the PTR a little while ago, completely on purpose, we showed the ability for Blade Dash to you be able to cast Phase Prism, his ability to swap with opponents during a Blade Dash. So that's going to go live. So I thought it'd be really cool to show you some of the cool things you're going to be able to do with these cool functionality, or using these two together. For instance, you can Blade Dash from really far away and swap an Asmodan to drag him halfway across the screen. You can dash around people to make sure you get the backline targets that you want to swap. You'll be able to dash back into your team or town to throw people back toward them. And my personal favorite, the ability to swap completely over unpathable terrain and swap a guy completely out of the fight. It's awesome. So we're looking forward to seeing Artanis, Varian, and Ragnaros, and all of you guys in the Nexus soon. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions, now is the time.
Oh.
There's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of questions. Bye. Got our first question? All right.
How's it going?
Hey.
Hey, I have a question about death animations. I don't want to see Ragnaros ragdoll, and I don't like seeing Diablo ragdoll or any other Protoss character ragdoll. And you guys have an amazing art team, and I know you got a million things in your backlog, but I feel there's, a minimal effort, maximum reward on something as small as a death animation. So I asked this question last year, and a lot of people seem to like it when I talk to them, but is there ever going to be death animations in your game?
It's a feature that we definitely want to implement. It's just the prioritization of it and when we can get it in. Thank you for the feedback, though. Appreciate it.
I like the Ragnaros dropping down with a. That's a good one.
Hi. These multi-class heroes that you're talking about making now, they're some of my favorites in the genre, with heroes such as Windrunner and Nidalee from other games. While these jack-of-all-trades heroes often sound good on paper, one of the biggest difficulties when designing them is to maintain an iconic and powerful feeling compared to heroes with a more static hit. Can you comment on the sort of challenges that a multi-class hero brings to development, and do you feel that you have conquered all these challenges with Varian?
Sure. So when making him multi-class, what we really wanted to do is we wanted to make you lock into a specific choice. So after you've made those choices at 4 and 10, you can't change, and you are statically bound for the rest of that game into those choices. So you don't have all the access. You're not like a Swiss Army knife who has all these tools. You're locked into those specific choices. And I think that that's going to do a lot to keep Varian in the places where he needs to be per each game. Thank you.
Hi. So Samuro has entered the Nexus and has arguably had one of the strongest impacts of any hero that has come into Heroes of the Storm. How do you feel about his launch, and why do you think he's having such a strong effect on bans? And he's basically first ban all the time, and I just kind of want to get your feelings about where you think he stands right now.
Yeah, he does a lot of damage. That's why he gets banned a lot. Overall, he's just probably stronger than we want. In fact, we have some nerfs coming in next week. Yeah. Quick match, rejoice. So yeah, we're going to tone him down some. I mean, that's the majority of it, is just too strong. So, yeah.
They're coming.
They are coming very soon. We're sorry.
Hi, I had a two-part question. One being, when you're creating character skins, I'm thinking of a big burly hero like Diablo. I know you're trying to keep a similar silhouette so that when you see the hero, you always know it's Diablo. So would we ever see a Diablo 3 skin where it's still Diablo, but it's kind of skinnier in different parts without the same silhouette? Or the other question is, I'm thinking of scale. You talk about putting Ragnaros next to all the other characters to see how big and burly he is. So what happened to little Asmodan, who my other favorite boss takes up 75% of your screen and is really giant?
Go ahead and do Ragnaros first.
So what was the question with Ragnaros again?
Scale.
The scale.
Scale. Oh, he's a really good example because he's got such a strong silhouette by himself that we can kind of shrink him down and you'll never not think that that's Ragnaros. So some heroes can kind of break the rules a little bit, but other ones, they have very, very similar heroes to them that we try to make sure that we always have a separation. And you can...
And in regards to that Diablo 3 skin, it's almost done.
All right. So when are we going to get some more Blizzard Classic love? Like the Lost Vikings Evil Alien Emperor, the Rock and Roll Racers?
I think that's something we're super excited about. We also have to ask the question, like, man, how many people actually played Blackthorn? I know in this audience it better be like 80% of you guys. I want to see some raised hands for Blackthorn here. But it's definitely something that's on our radar. Like, we have that little B button in the Hero Select screen, so we haven't forgotten about it. Just give it time. Give it time.
Hey, first of all, level 20 Artanis, so thank you for that.
Nice.
You're going to love it.
My question is, you mentioned earlier when you showed the picture of Varian with all the other characters, you said almost all of them are already in the game. I noticed Zul'jin was in there. Any chance of that?
You notice the Amani Warbear in the opening ceremony? Good eye.
That was a nice bear.
Very nice bear. Very nice bear.
So a number of other Blizzard games like StarCraft and Diablo have clan or guild systems. Are there any plans for that? And if not, do you have any thoughts on that for helping foster community within the game?
Oh my gosh, I want that yesterday, like so badly. We are definitely working towards clans. I can't say when it'll come out because we're going to do it right, or we're going to work really hard to do it right. We have lots of really cool ideas for stuff you could do with clans, none of which I can say because it'll probably all change tomorrow. So, but it's definitely on the forefront of our mind. We want to do it.
Hey guys, thanks. I love your game. My question is, do you ever plan on introducing any kind of MMR decay? Because there's literally zero movement at the top for the people who go away for a long time and then come back to the game. There's no downside to that. And the second part that I wanted to ask is, where's Ilaria? Sylvanas has been in the Nexus alone long enough.
I mean, have they even found Ilaria and Azeroth? As for MMR for that question, the clans, we have the State of the Game panel as at 4 p.m., I think. Memory's failing me. I think it's on the main stage at 4. Definitely check it out. The guys who work on that stuff will be there, and will I know they were talking about clans, and I think that they will talk about MMR and MMR Decay. It's something we're actively looking at, how we can continue to make the ranked play system even better. I mean, I'm a hardcore ranked guy myself. I'm playing it every day. I definitely want to see these things in there as well.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hello. My question is around spectator mode. That's one of my favorite things from a previous MOBA I played, and I think it'd be really good for watching other people play and just see esports and that sort of thing.
Live spectate also would be really awesome. It's like the same team though. I'd be working on clans and in-game voice chat and MMR stuff. So again, something I've been dying for like 2 years. Like, come on, live spectate. I want to watch my friend before I jump into a game. We'd like to do it, definitely.
All right, thank you everyone.
One more.
Oh, just kidding, one more.
Yeah, bring
Come on.
Murloc
You were
back.
so dedicated.
Get that Murloc over here.
Yeah.
Come on, we can handle it.
We love Murlocs at Blizzard.
Boy, this is weird and really awkward because I was going to ask the same question. And that was, I've been commentating for the past couple of years since Alpha, and I've been wondering, when I'll be able to live spectate. And really want that because it's hard just kind of finding random games on here, HOTS logs. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool, we'll do.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you for attending the Hero